and also welcome Jackson Murray, who's the engagement lead for Grant Thornton. Welcome, Jackson. Hope you enjoy the meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
And that's about it. So we don't have any apologies as such, and it's just Julian that's missing now, isn't it?
It is, Chair. Obviously, we are streaming the Audit Committee for the first time, so would it be worth me just going through who's on the call, Chair?
That's a good idea. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of committee members, we haven't had any apologies for the meeting, but as we speak at the moment, we have councillors Austin, Holway, McKay, Pennington, Spence and Taylor. We don't yet have Councillor Brazil on the call. So in terms of the Audit Committee, we have 6 of our 7 members on the call. And we also have from the Executive, Councillors Bastone, Hawkins, Hopwood and Pearce. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thanks, Darryl. Okay, well, first of all, we'll look at the minutes. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes of the meeting from the 6th of February? No. I'll take it that we're all in approval then, and that I will sign them at some stage. Is that right, Darryl?
That's spot on. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Okay. Right, well, we'll go straight in then to Grant Thornton's Audit Progress Report and Sector Update.
Sorry, Chair, I think we should, for the technicality, we should just go through the running order. So, for example, I think we do potentially have one item of urgent business, Chair, which of course relates to the executive recommendation to the committee last week.
You're right. Sorry, my mistake. Well done.
So just to set the context, the executive met last Thursday, and when considering the average regeneration report, included an additional recommendation, which read, the executive recommend that the audit committee work plan be updated to ensure the risk management elements of the average regeneration project be considered at a future meeting. Now, of course, because that agenda item is due to go to council in September, if the committee is minded to accept that request, it would need to go to the next committee meeting in July, Chair.
Yes, it would. I'm hoping that all the work will have been done, ready for that meeting. I'll assume the answer to that's yes. And go on then.
Yes, so the intention would be to put the same papers back onto the audit committee in July.
Lovely. Okay, we shall do that then. Yeah, so that's in the programme for July.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not going to divide the agenda. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? No. Now we can go into the Grant Thornton Audit Progress Report and Sector Update, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, first of all, hello everyone, lovely to be here, and good to meet you all virtually. So, the report on your agenda today was originally scheduled to go to the previous audit committee along with our audit plan, which due to COVID, that committee was cancelled. So, our audit plan was taken to full council earlier in the year. This audit progress report was due to come to you at the last committee, but we've made a couple of alterations to this to reflect changes that have been made to audit timetables, etc. as a result of COVID. So I'll run through a couple of the key points and then happy to take any questions on anything within our report. So I suppose the first key point I wanted to bring to your attention is on page 4 of our report, where we talk about progress at the end of May 2020. So I've mentioned the impact of COVID. That one of the key impacts in terms of the accounts production is that new legislation has been laid, which has altered the audit timetable for the 2019-20 financial statements. So the council now has until at the latest the 31st of August to publish draft accounts. I would say we've been in dialogue with Lisa and the team, and they are well on their way to producing those financial statements. And in fact, we've already begun some of our audit procedures. So the council will have produced draft accounts well in advance of that new deadline. And similarly, the date to publish audited accounts has now been moved back to the 30th of November. So previously, the target date for publication of audited accounts or republication of accounts that had yet to be audited was the 31st of July. So nationally, that timetable has been shifted as a result of COVID to allow councils and finance teams more time to focus on more immediate pressures. So that's a key change to our reporting timetable and the council's reporting timetable that I wanted to bring to your attention. Over the page then, on page 5, so we discuss audit fees on page 5. Now, in the audit plan that went to full council, there was a page on our proposed audit fee for 2019-20. That audit fee included a variation from the original scale fee set by public sector auditor appointments, who are the contracting body that the council used to procure the external audit services. Those variations have subsequently been approved by PSAA as the independent moderating body. So the proposed fee for the 2019-20 financial statements audit and value for money conclusion will be £40,271. The variations relate to increased work that we're seeing across the board, and fee variations are also being proposed at all of our local government audits. They relate to some of the key areas and judgments within the financial statements around pension valuations, land and building and investment property valuations, and then new standards and increased scepticism that our regulator is imposing on all audit firms, be they public sector or private organisations. And some of those are as a direct result of some of the quite public failures of companies, and similarly some of the challenges you've read about in terms of local government financing in recent years as well. So just to say that we would have had a discussion on that when we presented our audit plan, but I'm conscious that since we didn't get to do that, I did just want to draw members' attention to that. And as I said, in our report it says to be approved. Those have subsequently been approved by PSAA, and I understand that PSAA will have notified the council of that approval as well. So just to make it clear, last year, I wasn't your engagement lead, but last year Grant Thornton also proposed fee variations on the 18-19 audit. To be clear, these variations that have been approved are for similar/same areas as in 18-19. What we've sought to do is bring these to you at our audit planning stage rather than coming to the end of an audit and bringing them to you. So just wanted to make that clear. And I suppose the other point is to say this is our proposed fee. We never know what we will find during an audit. So this isn't to say this is absolutely the final fee, but this is our proposed fee, and knowing the work that we need to undertake at this point in time. The remainder of the report then is our usual sector update that you would normally see. So it includes various references to reviews, reports, things going on in the public sector or the audit world that may be of interest to you as members of the audit committee. I wasn't proposing to go through each of those page by page. However, I will pause there and happy to take any questions.
Okay, I have one question, at least to start with. Last year, we ended up with the fee plus extra. When we compare this year, fee plus extra, how does it compare with the grand total last year?
That is a very good question. So last year, the final fee was 37,821. This year, our proposed fee is 40,271. So it's about £2,500 increase on the previous year.
What?
Okay, thank you.
37? That's not 2.5, that's 5.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you add on the 4,500, which we were charged extra on top of the 37,821, the total audit fee paid for 18-19 would have been 42,321, and the proposed audit fee for 19-20 is 40,271. So with the extra fees, the extra 4,500 that we paid last year, the proposed audit fee for 19-20 is actually lower when you include the 4,500 that we paid in addition to the core fee last year.
I heard it the same way as you did, Judy, to start with, but it's 40,271, not 42,71.
Yeah,
That
Chairman, I apologise. I didn't realise my microphone was on. I shall switch it off now.
So no, it's fine. It was easy.
Does this mean there's no extras this year then?
So there is a proposed increase from the scale fee, which has already been approved by PSAA. So the scale fee originally set by PSAA, which would have been set a number of months ago, was 33,421. They've approved an increase to that of 6,850, which takes us to the £40,271, which is our proposed fee.
Chair, Councillor Austin has indicated on the instant message system he wished to ask a question.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Carry on, Lance.
Hello. Yeah, I think my question relates to the kind of comments that other people have already been making on this. So the history of this is that last year we had £4,500 that we were supposed to pay on top of the standard fee that we were given. And I think at the time it'd be fair to say there was a fair amount of sort of controversy really about the fact that we were being charged an additional £4,500 on the fee that was originally agreed. So I suppose the two questions I've got is, first off, you're putting up your fees by 5%. Is that really necessary, given the fact that the council is under such financial pressure at the moment? Because the council is not exactly in a situation where we've got money to burn right now. We've got a real financial problem, and yet what we're facing from Grant Thornton is a 5% increase in charges. Is that actually really necessary? And how on earth do you justify, under the current circumstances, putting up your fees by 5% effectively? I don't think there are many businesses at the moment that are thinking of getting 5% more off of their customers than they were before. And my first question would be, how do you justify an increase of 5%? My second question is you alluded when you were talking about your report to the fact, and I think your words were, that this is not the final fee. Now, to me, that is a real red light, what you're saying there, because what you're saying is you're putting the fee up by 5%, and then on top of that, here we are, we're going to sit here in another 12 months' time, and you're going to come back and tell us about some more money you want to charge as well as that. And I have to say right now that if you put your fee up by 5% to start off with, and then you come back to the council and do what you did last year, which is then come and say to us, we're going to charge you an additional £4,000 or £5,000 on top of that, then I'm certainly not going to be happy about that at all. And my suggestion would be, at that point, that we go out and tender for someone else to do the audit, because I'm getting pretty sick of Grant Thornton continually coming to this council and asking it for more money. So my second question is that actually the final fee you're going to charge us, or are you going to come out with another amount of money which you're going to say at the end of it you want us to pay as well?
Okay, so I'll take those questions in turn. So the first one, in respect of the 5% increase, I think it's fair to say, and this is fact, we've capped our increase this year because we recognise the pressures that local authorities are under with budgets. We in the audit world are under significant pressure to increase our work as well as a result of that regulatory challenge. I think the assurance the committee can take, I hope, is that PSAA are an independent body who the council contract with for their external audit services. So they act as a moderator. So any fee increase, we have to agree that with council officers, but PSAA as a third party also have to consider that increase to say whether it's justified or not. And they have already approved that, to say, yes, it is justified. There's been various publications that they've produced, and it's not just Grant Thornton, it's all audit bodies around the country, saying our work has increased from the time that we originally tendered and these contracts were let over 2 years ago. The world has changed, the expectations of auditors and audited bodies have changed, and that is the rationale for these fee increases. So that's probably my response on the first point. On the second point, we can never say a fee is final until we've finished an audit. Knowing what we know at the moment and the work that is required of us, this is our proposed fee. We don't know if during the audit we find something, and I'm not saying that we will, and historically we haven't, but I don't think we could ever say until we've finished an audit that we haven't identified an issue that's going to require significant amounts of additional work. If that was the case, we would have to discuss that first with finance officers, council officers, to understand the impact of that. And any proposed fee increase again would need to go through public sector auditor appointments. So I can't sit here and say that is absolutely the final fee because we've not completed an audit yet. What I can say is that's the proposed fee. So in a normal audit year, that's the fee we would propose and expect to charge the council. But until we've finalised that audit and the audit opinion has been issued, I could not say that that would be a final fee.
Chairman, could I add a couple of points also to that?
Yes, please. And I've realised that I didn't welcome Julian, Councillor Brazil, who joined us some time ago now. So welcome, Julian. Sorry you had another meeting that clashed.
Welcome. Sorry I'm late.
Yeah, carry on, Lisa. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 9 of Grant Thornton's report, they talk about the Redmond review, which was the review of local authority financial reporting and external audit. And what that independent review found when they looked at that was that there is an increased complexity now around the accounts. So if you look at the accounts now compared to the accounts, say, 3-4 years ago, they are more complex. That there is more work around the value for money audit side of things, particularly around things like greater focus on future financial stability and the complexity of some of the regulations that we now have to follow. So I think the independent body did look at audit fees sort of nationally, and obviously this year there will be additional complexities around the accounts for COVID, so there will be a lot more extra disclosures that we need to make. I don't know, Jackson, whether you also want to touch on things like fixed asset valuations, and that there will be a material uncertainty now around valuations for fixed assets. So both ourselves as the client and Grant Thornton as the auditors will be doing more work around fixed assets because of that material uncertainty around valuations due to COVID. So I don't know if that helps at all. Also, when we signed up with public sector auditor appointments, we did sign up for 5 years. So we are in the 2nd year now with Grant Thornton, and there is 3 more years of that contract to run. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Oh, no, yeah, I am open. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, they've obviously pulled in all the big guns with all these reports, ganging up on us, I think. But yeah, okay. Any more questions or
Chair, on the instant message system, Councillor Spencer's indicated a wish to raise a comment.
Oh yes, please. Then yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. My comments, to some extent, reflect those of Bernard and Lance, but particularly Lance. I work in the financial services industry. I've had to look at post-COVID-19 work and how we're going to evolve with increased reporting requirements through the FCA and so on. And I tested my fee scales against some of my better clients, better being those ones I could discuss confidential terms with. And without exception, the client said that they didn't want to see their fees increase. Now, okay, yes, of course they would say that. But I had to make a commercial decision for my firm working in the same sector. And my commercial decision was that I can't afford to increase my fees to my clients. So my comment to Grant Thornton about looking and effectively hanging their hat on an external body is that smacks to me a little bit of sloping shoulders. It is still possible, I would have thought, for Grant Thornton or any other commercial body to make a commercial decision. And the commercial decision in this case, as I see it, is that the council has had most forms of its income restricted or terminated in one way, shape or form. And we're spending public money, and I think there ought to be a commercial decision made within Grant Thornton that reflects the commercial relationship between the two bodies, irrespective of what the outside body says. And the second point I wanted to make was that when we looked at the costs for 1920, 40,271, that may on the face of it seem to be a reduction on last year's total figure, but it did exclude whatever arbitrary figure that Grant Thornton can come along with at a later date. I just wanted to make those 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Anyone?
Chair, Councillor Austin has also indicated a wish to ask a further question.
Okay, yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question coming back on this with Lisa is you're talking about us tied in for 5 years to this contract, but actually bearing in mind that we were charged £4,500 last year more than we expected, we aren't tied in for 5 years. We could possibly actually say, because they are charging us more than the amount of money that they agreed, that contract is effectively invalid and we could go out to tender again. So they can't just keep coming back to us and saying they've got extra charges on a regular basis. And what I'm hearing here, when somebody says this is not the final fee, what I'm hearing is that we are going to be in that situation in 6 to 12 months of time again, where they come back and say, oh, look, I found another £5,000 worth of fee charges. Now, we're not tied into that contract over 5 years, no matter what they come back and do. And they've already come back and asked us for £4,500 more than they said they were going to charge. So we are actually in a situation where we could go back out to tender again on the basis that they haven't stuck to the fee that they agreed in the first place. Is that not correct, Lisa?
Apologies, Councillor Austin. I honestly don't think that is the position. I think when we signed up with public sector auditing appointments, we did so nationally, and we did so with the knowledge that we couldn't. We had to go with whoever the national provider was that was decided by PSAA, and my understanding is we are tied into those arrangements for 5 years. As Jackson has said, any changes to the core audit fee do have to be agreed by PSAA, and those additional audit fees for last year were approved by PSAA. So the fact that they've approved those variations, I don't think that allows us to break out of that national framework that we did enter into. I don't know if you can clarify if that's your understanding as well, Jackson, but that's certainly my understanding.
So my understanding is the contracts do allow for fee variations, which is why they go through PSAA. I don't know the specifics of the contract between PSAA and the council, because that's who the contract is with. So I couldn't comment on those, but there are provisions within those contracts for fee variations, which is the route that the council and ourselves and PSAA have taken.
Right, thank you for that. Can I just ask, are the councils represented by the LGA or any other body in negotiation with PSAA?
On the back of last year's increase in audit fees, I think there was an acceptance nationally that the notification of those additional fees came far too late from all accountancy providers, not just Grant Thornton, but other accountancy providers that were providing an audit service to other councils. So nationally, audit fees went up. Similarly by about the same amounts. I mean, obviously I'm in regular contact with all of the other Devon Section 151 officers. Some of those additional audit fees were greater than ours through different providers. Obviously, there's what I think we would certainly hope is that if there is additional audit work done this year, I think what we would be asking Grant Thornton is could we have early notice of that rather than the notice of that coming very very late, probably, I think it was fair to say, in the day. I think Grant Thornton and the other audit providers knew they were doing additional work, and I think if notification of those additional fees had come at an earlier stage, that may have been an easier message, perhaps.
Thanks, Lisa. Right, Judy, you want to speak, and then I think we'll move on and leave the fees where they are for the moment.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say that when this PSAA contract was taken on, that was when I was chairman of the audit committee. And those of you who were members at that time will recall that there was a choice that we either went in with the PSAA contract for, I think, the Southwest or whatever it was, or we went it alone. Now, what was obvious was that had we gone it alone, our fees would have been considerably higher than they are now, even with the add-ons. And whilst I'm not condoning the add-ons, because I think it's totally unacceptable, what became obvious was that the large firms had undoubtedly put in bids that they then found they couldn't keep to because there was a lot more work involved than they had, well, they said they'd taken account of, but actually because they had already been doing audits for local councils for a long time, they should have known and costed more accurately the amount of work involved. Now, I can see that this is no fault of Jackson's at all, but what I'm saying is that the system was flawed. And I think the PSAA, in awarding the contracts, should actually have done due diligence and realised that the figures that were being put in were too low and that you could not expect a proper audit at the fees that were being charged. Now, at the same time, it became obvious that some of the accountancy firms had not been doing a good job, and Northampton is the obvious one, but there was Bristol City Council and there were others as well. And I think it became apparent to all of us that external audit had been a bit of a magic money tree for some of the firms, and I think we should still be wary of excess charges, and I think you are quite right to question carefully why those are being charged. But that's all I've got to say at the moment on that subject.
Thank you, Judy. Yes, I think all of that is fair comment, and I agree with it. Okay, Jackson, back to you. We'll move on from fees.
Sorry, Chair, Councillor Brazil has made an indication on the instant question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Tom, yeah, I just wanted to ask, because you asked a very good question there about the PPSA or whatever it is. Who's on it? Because I mean, what concerns me is it a board of other accountants who are agreeing that accountants' fees can go up? And it didn't answer whether there was any representation from local authorities.
Lisa, can you answer that, or Jackson?
That's a very good question. It is made up of a board of directors, but I don't know who those individuals are, or what their background is. I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer that.
Okay, Jackson, can you throw any light on it?
So I don't know off the top of my head, but a quick look on their website. So their chairman is a gentleman called Steve Freer. So he previously worked in local authorities, worked in a management consultancy, and was also the chief exec of SIPFA.
Okay.
Right. And there's a number of other board members listed on their website as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Well, I'm sorry, Julian. We'll see if we can find out a bit more.
Chairman, I'm happy to bring a short report on that back to the next audit committee, if that's helpful, around the background of PSAA and how long the council is tied into those arrangements.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Lisa. You happy with that, Julian?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Chairman. Great.
Okay, thank you. Back to you then, Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. I probably didn't have much more to say, to be honest, on our report. So if there were no more questions, I'll probably leave it there.
I hadn't better mentioned the changing standard on leases. Somebody might want to charge us an awful lot more money.
So that has been deferred again due to COVID. So
That's right.
To come in,
Yeah.
but that's been for yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay with us or not. I realise you may be very, very busy at the moment, so it's entirely up to you whether you'd like to stay for the rest of the meeting or you'd like to slide off quietly.
I appreciate that, Chair, but since it's my first one, I think I'll stay.
Lovely.
I'll sit in silence, I'll mute myself, but yeah, thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome, thank you. Right, Dominic, are you ready to do your bit? This is Dominic Measures, I should say that because it's all streaming and I keep forgetting. Welcome, Dominic. And
Chairman, I was going to present the report and then I'll hand over to Dominic.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yes, please.
That's fine, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay.
So this is the Internal Audit Annual Report 2019 to 20. As part of the internal audit reporting process, the Audit Committee has been receiving regular updates on the progress made on last year's audit plan. Under the public sector internal audit standards, the head of internal audit is required to present an annual report that provides an opinion that can be used by the Council to inform its annual government statement. Today's report is that annual report which summarises the work carried out by internal audit during 2019 to 20. It reviews the performance of the Internal Audit Service and provides an account opinion on the adequacy of internal control. Overall, and based on work performed during 2019 to 20, internal audit is able to provide substantial assurance on the adequacy and effectiveness of the authority's internal control environment. Thank you, Chairman. Now I'll hand over to Dominic for any subsequent questions on the report.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the report in front of you is our annual report. It follows the same format as previous annual reports. I'm not going to go through it in a huge great detail, but just running through the major points. You'll see on page 24 that I have set out the key findings from those audits where we gave an opinion of improvements required or fundamental weakness. Some of these summaries you would have seen previously in progress reports that have been to earlier audit committees. I'm pleased to say that this year we've got no audits that have come out with fundamental weaknesses. The first one on the list there, business continuity, that for a few years when we've reviewed it has come out as fundamental weakness, is now, there's been good progress made in that area, and we've managed to move it up to improvements required, which in itself is still not good, but the direction of travel is a positive one. And I just think that the last 3 months has been a damn good test of business continuity procedures, and I'm sure that the procedures will be reviewed once, I was going to say, the new normal sets in, and internal audit are quite happy to be part of that review or lessons learned. I don't propose to go through in any detail, but I will try and answer questions on any of the other areas that are listed under our key findings. The other thing to point out will be the standard Appendix A, at page, I think it is 32 of your agenda. There's a few committee meetings ago, I changed the symbols here so that the black squares meant that the status had already been reported, and any changes to the status was represented by a tick. You'll notice there's a lot of ticks, but that is because this report combines the usual annual report, but also the last progress report that had been written and was due to be presented to yourselves in March, but of course that meeting was cancelled. So the change to status is since the beginning of 2020. So we're looking at almost 5-6 months worth of work. just to point out, there is still, unfortunately, one audit, a key financial audit, debtors, that my colleague Matt is still working on. Both Matt and Julie, since lockdown, have been heavily involved in helping out officers with the various grant payments to businesses and the discretionary grants, carrying out checks on the suitability and the genuineness, shall we say, of applications. So therefore, some of our audit work has been delayed, shall we say, but we are looking to catch up on that as soon as we can. The other thing to point out is, as the regular thing we have is Appendix B, which is basically the kind of detailed findings and the manager's responses to final that appeared in final reports that we've issued since the last report, a progress report you saw back in January, February time. So that's why I've produced such a long committee report. Apologies for that. It wouldn't normally be 40 odd pages that it is. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything else I would want to point out, but I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Sorry, I lost my cursor on the other screen. Thanks, Dominic. No, it's a good report, and thank you very much. There's obviously an awful lot of work gone into it.
Councillor Brazil, Chair, has asked indicated a question on the IM
right,
file.
okay, lovely. I just wanted to quickly say, it looks as if everyone has agreed what you've said. Are you happy that they're all working positively to addressing any shortfalls?
I think so, Chair. Obviously, COVID has knocked everybody slightly sideways as far as doing the kind of the day job, the regular day job. So there may be delays in actually achieving the actions that are listed there. One thing I'll just reiterate, and I think I mentioned it in the introduction to the Appendix B, is the responses that you see in front of you were the responses we received at the time of the issue of the final report. So some of these audits were done, you know, back in the autumn. We would have got responses maybe around Christmas time. So there has been a period of time where action would have been taken. But of course, since March, some of those actions, resources may have been diverted onto more urgent things.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I was interested. I mean, it's a question. I suppose it's a comment as well, and that is within Appendix B, commercial property and rents, and I see that there's an issue about new tenancy applications, and the comment in the management response is the new tenancy is working well with the new software system. Further process develop, but reliance is placed on assistance from the business development team who have limited time, which I'd love to know what they're doing, but also would I mean, I would have thought it's absolutely crucial at this stage that we need to have that be totally on top of that. Anyway, I just wondered if anyone's got any comments on that.
I'm happy to take that question, Chairman. So yes, what the management response on the right-hand side talks about is about the new FIT project for the IT. So that is where they've put there. The time frame is somewhat out of the control of the estates team. What they're referring to is moving all of that work across from where it currently is, which is in W360, into the new IT system. That's work that will be undertaken by the business development team. So people like Jim Davis, for example, and what they're saying there is work to develop those processes will continue with the replacement of 360. So what they've got to do is take all of that information which is in our current IT system and migrate that across into the new IT FIT project. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Chairman, if I might come back on that.
Yes, please.
That's an answer. It's not. I don't think it's a particularly satisfactory answer. In that, we are going to be, first of all, our tenants. I need to know what sort of kind of position they're in. Are we going to suddenly find ourselves with lots of empty business units? And I would have thought it would be an absolute top priority of this council to be moving to look at that, and not giving the age-old excuse, oh well, the computer says that I didn't know, or that we were transferring information across. I think it should be an absolute top priority at this moment.
Chairman, if I can come in there. Yes, I think what the internal audit report is saying is that those processes at the moment are robust, but they need to be migrated across into the new IT system. I don't think we are saying there are any concerns with the current processes that are in place. The assets team are in regular dialogue and have been with all of our tenants since COVID, and we're not highlighting any concerns there.
Yeah, and I would back that one up.
Oh, thank you both. Okay. Right. Are we okay with that, Julian?
Yeah. No, I've made my point. I hope that I'd be interested to speak with. I mean, presumably when we come on to the risks later on, it'd be very interesting to get someone from the assets team to talk specifically about our commercial properties and our industrial units.
Okay. I mean, certainly from the involvement of councillors, I think it's fair to say that assets have worked very hard with tenants to make sure that they get all of the grants that they're entitled to help them through this difficult situation. So I'm at the moment, the indications to me are that they are in touch, but it's fair comment, and I think everything needs to be questioned. So thank you.
Chair, Councillor Spence has indicated his wish to ask some questions.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm looking at page 24 initially, and the comment that's raised there, it talks about potential to create efficiencies and other improvements. On page 25, paragraph 3, it also talks about that there was a lack of evidence that tasks that have been identified haven't been addressed. And similarly, on and in that particular section, that paragraph 3, it talks about limited staff resource, and that phrase has come up quite a few times. And whilst I appreciate, and I really appreciate what has been done in terms of COVID-19, and I appreciate that there has been a substantial distraction from people's day-to-day work, it worries me that a number of times this idea of limited resource, if the staff had time. On page 25 again, page 26, I beg your pardon, there's some other things that are mentioned there, such as paragraph 2 under IT change management. They talk about changes not being done, and we talk about insufficient staff resources. So is the fact that we would appear not to have sufficient staff resource going to be a problem? Is a problem at the moment, is a problem at the future? I don't know how that is addressed, and that would be my question.
If I can just initially answer that, it's this day and age, there is obviously tightening of resources, not just with your council, across the board, across a number of councils. We're finding, Devon Audit Partnership are finding this is an issue. We're trying. I think a lot of councils are trying to weigh up, improve getting efficiencies in, so that more can be done with the smaller workforce. And there are times when that is not possible. and we are just highlighting that, trying to highlight those areas where perhaps management need to look and see what are the solutions. And it comes down to, can we improve processes through technology, through just tweaking the way people do things? The risk, obviously, from an internal audit point of view, some people would say, well, we could cut out a complete process, and we're then concerned that so the control goes with the process and we lose that key control. So we're always mindful of where there is a lack of resources, what's the impact on the control, and does that lessen the robustness of the internal control environment?
Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Pennington, is that?
Yes. What are we doing now? Are we going to go through these page by page? Because I've got one or two questions on various pages.
Okay. Well, look, if you'd like to tell us which page you'd like to go to start with, and then we'll move from page to page for your questions, if you like. Okay.
First of all, I'd like to make a positive comment and say I do agree that with the page 24, that there are no fundamental weaknesses, and that's important. But page 26, there, which it says because of existing procedures, it needs improvement. Now, first of all, with regards to that, my question is, it doesn't seem to be working as intended. Why? Page 26.
Right. Okay.
Chairman,
carry
I think
on.
I can answer that question. So this is around our ICT procedures and our change management procedures. And I do know that within the ICT infrastructure team, prior to this audit, I don't think there was one sole post which was designated to having the responsibility to ensure that change control procedures were in place. So I think it was part of the role of all of the infrastructure team. I do know that since this audit report that Mike Ward, who's our head of community practice for IT, has now got one person within that ICT infrastructure team responsible for ensuring that those change control procedures are in place. So I do think that has been addressed since the audit report by making that the sole responsibility of one person within the infrastructure team.
I see, yes. I take
Thanks,
that.
Lisa.
Page 36, insurance cover. There's a comment there, still requiring improvement. Just what? Has any improvement been done recently? Page 36.
Oh, God.
Did you want to answer that one, Mr. Hawke? This is around insurance, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was just scrolling to page 36. Yeah, so in terms of insurance, we have just renewed our insurance contract with our current provider for a 2-year period. It was an extension period we have available to us. And as part of that, we do undertake an annual review. So we will be reviewing our insurance cover arrangements as part of that. I think what the audit report was referring to is actually we should look to get some external expertise in, and it may well be that the broker is the person we want to put in to do that for us, to review our insurance arrangements across the board, primarily because we think we have got areas where we might be over-insuring. Not significantly, but I think if we can rationalise that, then we should be looking to do so, but also identifying any opportunities to put new insurance arrangements in place. So I've certainly been talking to the Local Government Association, who have formed an insurance mutual, to explore any options for us to potentially join that mutual in the future, for some collective bargaining, should we say, for insurance cover. So that's where we are in terms of insurance. So improvements are being made, but I think over the next 2 years, there's an opportunity to really refine our insurance cover.
We do need to be kept up to date with those, don't we? Yeah.
Absolutely, we'll keep those up to date, and we do update them through the audit reports and through the senior leadership team. But we can certainly bring a future update back to audit committee.
I see. Can I go on with questions, please, Chairman? Chairman? Chairman. Hello?
Still hear you, Councillor Pennington. We can still hear you. I think Councillor Holway might be on
Yeah,
silent.
sorry, I switched it off. I was ready for Trevor to carry on. Carry on, Councillor Pennington,
Page
please.
45, with regards to commercial property and rents, it does specifically state there, improvements required. Can you enlarge on these, please? What are the improvements?
Yes, I can help with that, Councillor Pennington. So the improvements there are currently all of our sort of tenancies and licence information. We use a new system called Concerto to manage all of those. And some of that information is also currently in a system that we use called W360. And with the new IT project that's coming on stream this year, what we need to do is migrate all of that information across into the new IT system. That is work which has been undertaken by the business development team. So people that are leading that are Kate Hampers, the project manager, and we've got Jim Davis doing the majority of the work on that. So all of that information needs to be migrated across from the assets, current information within the assets team, and within the systems currently used into that new IT system. That is also the same for lots of other services as well. So, for example, business rates, council tax, they all have a certain timescale in that larger IT project within which work has to be done to streamline those processes going forward. But that IT system, I think we're hoping to have that going live by early next year, if I'm right on the timescales on that, Mr. Hawke. So that's what we're alluding to there, that there is work that needs doing to migrate all of that information across.
Okay, I hear what you say. Page 52, business rates improvements. Now, when are they envisaged to be completed, please? And incidentally, could we have further written copies of these answers that are being given to me, please? Page 52, business rates improvements.
Darryl, Mr. White, am I correct in thinking the answers will be captured in the minutes?
They will indeed. Thank you, Mr. Buckle.
Thank you. With regards to business rates, so some of the things that have been identified there, one was around a programme of reviews of reliefs. So one of the things we've just recently signed up to, and as we are part of the Devon business rate pool, we're going to be doing this with the other Devon councils, but what we want to do is undertake a review of the reliefs and exemptions for business rates. So there is a national company which does this. It takes extracts of your business rate database.
Which company is that, please?
It's Analyse Local, they're called. Analyse Local. So they work with local authorities, and we're going to be doing this as part of a joint project with our partners in the Devon business rate pool, and looking at those reliefs and exemptions. So I think what the audit report is picking up there is to carry out, for example, a review of small business rate relief, and in the response on the right hand side we've said work is being commissioned in conjunction with some of the partners in the Devon business rate pool. So we are looking to start that work next month. I think that work will take a couple of months to work through. That's similar to what we did last year when we carried out a single person's discount review for our council tax. And on the back of that, we actually, there was 240,000 of single person's discounts which were reversed, which were through that exercise, customers were no longer eligible for that single person's discount. So the amount for South Hams on the back of that review was 240,000. So our share of that, our sort of 9–10%, would be around 24,000. So we did a big review of exemptions last year on council tax. This year we're programming in to do the same for business rates, and that's the improvements required which is being referred to on the audit report. It also talks there about having regular review of payment arrangements as well. That is work that we are working through at the moment to see how we can better automate that process as well, so that it doesn't involve so much manual looking at payment arrangements. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Lisa. And finally, page 53, and I do have concerns about this. I have concerns at a lack of policy on council tax debts, and in particular on write-offs, and no longer being effective to do so. Why? Why is it no longer effective to do so, please?
So in terms of our write-off policy for council tax, we do have a limit, which is around about £75 to £100, whereby it's not effective or cost effective for us to try and chase that debt through debt enforcement measures. So some of those smaller amounts we would look to bring to the executive for write-off if those debts are quite old as well. And what we're alluding to there is that we do need to go back and redo that. I think we went through all of our council tax debts last year, and we need to go through that process again this year, looking at the same sort of thing. So which debts is it effective for us no longer to pursue? It's not cost effective, and which ones would we bring to the executive for write-off? Obviously anything over £5,000 needs the approval of the executive members.
I see. So
thanks, Lisa. I think it's fair to
fine. Thank you.
I think it's fair to say that there's been quite a lot of pressure on public bodies to back off a bit on debt collection, especially in view of COVID.
We are sending out our first council tax and business rate reminders, and those are going out this week. Those letters have been redrafted, so that the letters are very much, the letter is, we notice that you've fallen behind with your payments. What can we do to help you as our customer with that? Referring to people to our website and places of assistance. For example, it may be that they're eligible for council tax support. It may be that they're eligible for some of the discounts, for example, single person discount. It may be that we can help customers by spreading their payment profile between now and the end of March. And there's a series of measures within those reminder letters which are going out this week to customers around ways that we can help. And very much the message is, please do get in touch and let's see how we can help you with that council tax debt.
Lovely, thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you,
Councillor Pennington, is that all of your questions?
Yes,
now?
at the moment,
Lovely,
yes.
thank you. Members, anyone else? Oh, everyone else has. Anyone else got any questions, please, on the internal audit report?
The conversation box is clear at the moment, Chair.
It is, right. Well, Dominic, thank you very much for a good report. Yeah.
Chair, sorry, Chair, before we move on, we do, of course, have a recommendation on page 21 with two parts.
You're right. Yes. Okay. Let's have a look at that one. Members, you've seen the recommendation. Does anyone need it reading out? Okay. Everyone happy that we note items 1 and 2 on the recommendation?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. There's no one saying anything to the contrary on the conversation bar.
Lovely.
But having said that, Chair, Councillor Spence has just indicated he wished to speak.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, carry on, Councillor Spencer.
Yeah, and apologies for the way I spelt speak. The word that troubles me on the recommendation is substantial. I think that there are a lot of points that have been raised, like staff resources, like several items that have not progressed perhaps, or haven't progressed sufficiently, beyond 2018-19. So I have concerns about the word substantial assurance, or the words substantial assurance, except in the definition that's explained below.
Okay. Anyone else? Right. So do I need to take a vote as such, Darryl? Please guide me.
At this moment in time, I mean, Councillor Spencer's indicated a concern over the word substantial. I'm looking at the recommendation, and I'll look to Mr. Measures or Ms. Buckle. I think that is a technicality on a definition, which I wouldn't imagine would significantly change the recommendation. But notwithstanding that, if Councillor Spencer's happy, I'll reflect his concerns in the minutes before we move on.
Sorry, could I say something, Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Under the definitions are on page 23, and the definition of substantial assurance just says, however, some weaknesses in design and whatever, and I think what I'm saying is that there are some things which haven't necessarily been addressed. To ask it to drop to limited assurance is probably too big an ask. So I don't know whether what I'm expressing has any practical effect, if you know what I mean.
No. Okay. I mean, I think we at the end of the day we trust Dominic's judgment on this one, and if go on.
We've got 4 levels of assurance, and you know it's not black and white what substantial assurance. You can have a margin. But I would certainly not say it's limited assurance. I think that would be doing the councils, its staff, its members a disservice if we said it was limited assurance. You know, there are some good things going on, and even and our audits have identified areas of good practice. Yes, there are some underlying things there. You know, we've said about limited resources, but I would still provide a substantial assurance, perhaps. Not at the top end. You're not falling up into full assurance, that's for certain. But I wouldn't say you're falling into limited assurance at all.
No, I think that's fair comment. I think we accept, if you like, that the interpretation is somewhere along the lines of could do better.
There's room for improvement.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, I'd be very, very surprised to ever see an audit report that didn't pick up something.
I was going to say we wouldn't be doing our job, but But one thing to say to members is that SITFA, they always look at the assurance levels, because this is where we pick them up from, is from the professional bodies. And I know that SITFA have had another review of the assurance levels, and we are looking at those at the moment. I think that we're going to accept the new one. So in future, you'll probably see the new definitions. How much those will change, it'll be maybe just the words. I don't think we're going to have more than 4 levels of assurance, though. So we're always going to have this issue of, well, which box does it slot into?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. So,
Chair, would it help if I just withdrew my comment?
Well, yeah, it would. Yes, I think it would. At least that
consider it withdrawn.
Okay. Thank you. So I think we're unanimous then that we note as recommended on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. And just to confirm down the conversation bar, there is no one who is indicating a wish to vote against that recommendation to note. Thank you.
No. Great. Lovely. Well, yeah, thanks, Dominic. That's really good. And we look forward to seeing you in July.
Yes, I don't normally attend July, but I will be, because I know at the end of the meeting back in January, February, I think it was Councillor Austin asked for Devon Audit Partnership to make a presentation or bring a report on the services that we could offer you.
Yes.
I'm in conversation with Rob Hutchins, the head of partnership, and we were looking to. We couldn't unfortunately bring it to this meeting, what with COVID, and we've been very busy rearranging the way we work, etc. But we should be bringing something to members at the July committee. So I'll probably be there, and probably Rob Hutchins.
Lovely. We look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, Dominic. That's really good. Okay, we'll now move on to looking at strategic risk and opportunity monitoring, the biannual update, page 65. He said. Find that.
Chair, Councillor Pearce is the portfolio holder for this agenda item.
Yeah, good. Yes, right. Councillor Pearce, over to you, please.
Yes, I'd like to say that I'm standing in for David May on this one. So this is the part of his portfolio that I'm looking after at the moment. Yes, you're asked to review the Strategic Risk and Opportunity Register at Appendix 1 and make recommendations to Council on any further action the committee concludes should be considered. Now, under the Risks and Opportunity Management Strategy adopted in December 2018, the Audit Committee is to provide independent assurance to the Council on the effectiveness of the Council's risk and opportunity management, the internal control and overall assurance framework. So this report sets out the questions to be asked during the monitoring and lists the risks which have been moved into the operational risk register. So in other words, they're not appearing on this risk register. Members may question the scores on some of those listed at paragraph 3.3 and ask whether these should be increased in the light of recent events, though these are probably satisfactorily answered by the addition of 2 new risks in paragraph 3.5 and 3.6. Mitigating and management actions are very important, and paragraph 5.1 suggests you concentrate on the risks with the highest scoring. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pearce. Members, any questions or comments, please? Ooh.
Councillor Brazil is typing, Chair.
Ah, right, okay. Yes, please, Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, first of all, just a general comment. I mean, my eyesight, well, I can't see anything at a distance, but up close I'm okay. But I have to say the Strategic Risk Register, the report, is almost impossible to read.
I agree.
And I don't think that's acceptable on something so important. My other comments would be generally that, I mean, obviously I appreciate that they've updated it with the COVID-19, but some of it, I mean, you know, I think we need to rewrite it in the sense that adherence to medium-term financial strategy, and that's current situation is at the maximum. I mean, that we're under most stress there, but I think that it's a sort of catch-all. Everything's in there, and what we need to be able to do is to pull out the various sections that we feel are most at risk and those that aren't. At the moment, I presume we're talking a lot about revenue, how we might recover that. As opposed to things that have suddenly cost us a great deal more, be that contracts or whatever. So I think there's too much in there for something as important to that as hit 25. That needs to be separated out so that we have different things that we can look at. I'm pleased to see that obviously the health and well-being service provision is now in there. With what happens with fusion, I'm slightly disturbed, I have to say, to see that there's so much weight given in the management response to a grant of £4,500. I kept looking at that again, checking my eyesight to see if that was 4.5 million, but it's not. It's £4,500. The idea that somehow that's going to save us is somewhat risible, and I'm surprised that that's given so much weight within the report. I think we need to, as I've stated before, I think we need to bring into, which is probably, you see, this is what I mean, it's probably mixed up in our medium-term financial strategy, and that is that our, and I've tried, you try and read it, it's very tricky to read, and I don't think it's in there, but as I said before about our business parks, that is, we need to be looking at that very, very carefully and have some detailed information as to what's happening there and how we are mitigating all the risks about that. And indeed, of course, it's interesting that the biggest project that this council is doing, well, we're doing two huge projects at the moment that seems to be moving forward. That is the £8.5 million that we're looking to invest in Ivy Bridge. There's nothing on here at all about that, and neither the health and wellbeing centre in Dartmouth. Both massive financial outlays by this council, but nothing on the risk register, as if they're not a risk at all. And then obviously our financial position with West Devon, and again it talks about West Devon's earmarked and unearmarked reserves. I would want to see what position West Devon are in respect of COVID. We know from our views the rough figures that we're expecting our shortfall to be in our budget. I would want to see the same with West Devon, if we're going to properly look into that risk. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brazil.
I'm happy to take those questions, Chairman.
Yes, please, Lisa, that would be good.
Thank you, and apologies if I missed any of these. So with regards to future funding, very recently MPs earlier last week were told by Simon Clarke MP, who's the Housing and Local Government Minister of the State, that he was working very closely with his cabinet colleagues on a comprehensive plan to ensure council's financial sustainability over the financial year ahead. So we are very much awaiting eagerly details of that comprehensive plan, which is coming from government, and we don't know the timescales for that, whether that will be next week or sometime in July or even later than that. With regards to the points raised by Councillor Brazil, with regards to the medium-term financial strategy, which, as you say, is shown at the top with a risk rating of 25, very happy if we bring a further report back in July to delve into that risk register in a bit more detail. Mr. White and I were just discussing that the July agenda is quite large already, because we have the accounts on there, which as members know is over 100 pages, and what we may want to look at is maybe having a morning session and an afternoon session for the audit committee, if we were to do that for July, and then that's something we can discuss, but very happy that we can separate out some of those elements. Obviously the latest financial position went to the executive last week, which was saying that in terms of our income and expenditure account, we're looking at a potential overspend of 2.5 million, and that's after deducting the government grant that we've already received of just over 900,000. With regards to leisure, the position there is Obviously, we were awaiting the government announcement. So the government announcement on Tuesday said that gyms and pools are unable to open until further notice. So that situation is very fluid. It's changing rapidly. We're still awaiting government advice on the reopening. And myself and Mr. Brooke, the Director of Place and Enterprise, will continue to have ongoing discussions with the leisure provider about future arrangements, and we will bring a further report back to members at the earliest opportunity once the position is clearer. So as we said, the announcement this week was that leisure centres, gyms and pools are unable to open until further notice. With regards to the Sport England grant, the reason that we put that in there, that grant is to give us consultancy advice on the national position around leisure. So that's looking at the contract arrangements going forward, and that's why that was put in there. So although it is sort of £4,500, that will pay for some specific technical and specialist leisure advice looking at leisure arrangements nationally. When we talked about the comprehensive plan for councils, obviously we don't know whether that comprehensive plan for funding will include anything around leisure nationally as well. With regards to West Devon's financial position, I think on page 73 of the agenda, I refer to, and apologies that the text is small. We will make sure we sort that before the next report to members, and please accept our apologies for that. So the June budget monitoring report to the West Devon Hub Committee is being considered next week on the 30th of June, and West Devon are looking at a predicted overspend of just over £1 million for 2021. That report is a public report on West Devon's Hub Committee, and that will be considered next Tuesday. And yes, I have put the position there in terms of West Devon's reserves. So their reserves, they have just over £1 million in unearmarked reserves and 4.5 million in earmarked reserves. And very similarly to South Hams, obviously West Devon is in a healthy financial position and is well placed to meet the financial challenges of COVID-19, as is South Hams. Both councils obviously have been at the forefront in terms of they were one of the first sets of district councils to share a whole workforce and share all of our staff, followed by the Joint Transformation Programme. That's seen both councils introduce new IT and a new operating model, and that really has helped us in terms of making sure the councils are well placed to meet any future financial challenges. I think the savings that have been achieved between both councils from the sharing of staff, the sharing of services and the transformation programme has meant that both councils are saving between them £6 million per annum. And we now have a very lean and very efficient staffing structure, and it really is those decisions that members took in the past really that are standing us in good stead to meet the financial challenges of the future. With regards to Ivy Bridge and the £8.5 million proposed investment, we at the beginning of the audit committee, we referred to the fact that the papers that went to the executive will go on the audit committee agenda for July. They will be in the same format, and I think it has been agreed that the audit committee will look at the risk arrangements of that proposed investment. And as we have got quite a lengthy agenda, that's where we may want to consider maybe a morning and an afternoon audit committee agenda to look at all the items that we have on for July. With regards to the health and wellbeing investment in Dartmouth, my understanding is that a planning application has been submitted for that. But yes, I take the point that in future risk registers, we'll make sure that those key capital projects are also captured in there. I don't know if I've missed any question. Oh, there was a question about the business parks as well, and our estates management. So in the budget monitoring report, which we took to the executive last week, we put an assumption in there around our estates management income, and we said that we provided for a possible 25% of that estates management income, which we may not be able to achieve. That very much is the worst case scenario. We don't. It's too early in the financial year to have a definitive view around that, and therefore that is just a national average that we've put into our budget monitoring report. But as we go through the next few months, we will be able to firm up that position with the actual figures from our actual tenants, because by then we will have payment profiles for, say, April, May and June, and we'll be able to look at our debtors system, look at the invoices that have been raised, and against payments that have been made for our estates management, and we will be able to firm that figure up. So I did want to highlight that that figure in the budget monitoring report really is just a sort of average, a national average that we've put in. It's not a specific scenario to our tenants, but we will have that information over the next coming months when we can see that payment profile in detail, and we can obviously bring that information back to members. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else?
Just one thing, a very small thing, but nevertheless, it is very, very difficult to read this risk register. Can it be made more visible in future?
Lisa.
I think Julian raised it earlier.
Yeah, no, it's a fair comment. Lisa has said that it will be addressed for the future. I see Julie's make the point, and yes, I've got it on the big screen, and it is. It's okay on the big screen, but I couldn't read it on the go. No. So yeah, it needs the big screen at least. Members, anyone else? Sorry, Julian, is that you again with another quick question?
It is, Chairman. Sorry about that.
No, carry on.
It's a bit cheeky, really. I was wondering if it was a question to Mr. Murray. I see he's still there. And that is that here we have these projects of £8.5 million at Ivy Bridge. We've got the as Lisa has said, the planning permission is being sought for the health and wellbeing centre at Dartmouth. I don't know how much money that's going to be involved. The investment within Ivy Bridge has only come to audit, as I raised that. Is only coming to audit because I raised it at executive and said I thought it should come to audit so that we could look at the risks. The Dartmouth one, I'm not sure. I'm not aware of that coming to audit at all. I just wonder, Mr. Murray, if I feel that as a matter of course, any of these huge projects that we get involved in should come to audit as a matter of course. Rather than having to persuade the council that they should come because there is a significant risk involved with significant amount of money. I wonder if your experience with other councils, what position they take.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll take that one. Thank you for the question as well, Councillor. It's a mixture, so different organisations within their scheme of delegations and their various committee structures will take these sorts of decisions or reports to various committees. So it is fair to say that some of the other audit committees I sit on would have reports on some of these larger capital schemes going to them. Others may not. So it does really depend on the council kind of constitution and the various subcommittees and what those terms of reference for committees are. So it's not every other audit committee would see these reports. I mean, I take your point and thinking in terms of our responsibilities as external auditors, clearly with some of the sums being talked about and some of the kind of the decision-making process, there's some overlap there in terms of the work we complete in respect of value for money, maybe less so in our financial reporting side of things, other than ensuring those costs are accurately recorded in financial statements. But one of the areas of our value for money work is around informed decision making, and that's not to say is the decision appropriate, that's a democratic decision, but has the information been provided throughout some of those decision making processes?
Right, thanks, Jackson. Does anyone else have any questions or comments, please?
If I can just add to that and what Jackson has said, I've sat on a number of projects, whether they be the introduction of new computer systems, procurement exercises such as the waste services project. And I've often sat, or internal audit have been involved to ensure, with kind of two hats on, one to ensure that the project is being managed and is running smoothly, but also if there's new systems introduced that the controls are in place. We haven't been involved in things like the Ivy Bridge project, but we could provide advice or support if necessary, looking at the risks and how the project is being run.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Thanks, Dominic. Mr. Hawke, do you have any comments, anything to add?
Thank you, Chair. No, I think Mrs. Buckle covered most of the areas. I think it's vital to say that COVID-19 is significantly changing the risk profile of the council, and risk will be a key consideration of our risk and recovery planning as we move forward. Behind the scenes, there are a huge amount of risk registers. Things like specific risk register for COVID-19, but the risks haven't reached a threshold. Some of those risks haven't reached a threshold where they should be escalated to the strategic risk register. So just to give Audit Committee reassurance that we are managing a huge number of risks behind the scene, but they're managed, and they're managed well, and they're within the tolerance of our agreed policy, which is why.
Great, thank you very much. Okay.
Chairman, sorry, could I just add something on our capital projects as well, and in terms of procedure and our constitution? So the way those capital projects at the moment go through the various committees and council is those generally go to the executive and would have their own risk register. So, for example, the Ivy Bridge regeneration report that was considered last week had a separate risk register attached to that report. And then generally, if those projects are involving, they're requiring funding or investment, that's a council decision. So generally, it goes to the executive the project will go to the executive with its risk register attached. The audit committee's remit is to look at the risk management arrangements of the council, but then generally those reports go on to full council because they will be generally asking members to approve, say, PWLB borrowing, which is a council function. So they would then go on to council as the report, and again with the risk register. So that's kind of how our constitution is made up at the moment, and those capital projects generally go through that route. And then on a quarterly basis, we do quarterly capital programme budget monitoring reports to members, and although those don't have, there are, as Mr. Hawke said, specific risk registers for all of those large capital projects. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lisa. I think we're just about there, members. Anything else to add? Darryl, is there anything I've forgotten?
Not in accordance to the conversation history, Chair. Of course, the only final ratification, if you like, is the recommendation at the start of the report, Chair.
Oh, yeah. Hang on.
Page 65.
No, damn. Good. Sorry. I knew I'd lose something. Okay, members. You've all now seen the recommendations on page 65. Is there anyone who is not happy with that with the recommendations?
Just giving it a minute or so, Chair, but no one seems to be typing in the conversation history here, Chair, so I think everyone is content with the recommendation.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay, well, thanks, everyone. Thanks for everyone who's joined the meeting. and we'll look forward to the next one in July. So thank you very much, and bye for now.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.